Here's what your doctor probably hasn't had time to tell you. Not because they don't care, but because there aren't enough minutes in a 15-minute appointment to say what I'm about to say to you right now. There are 7 things that millions of people over 60 do every single day. Things that feel completely normal, even healthy, that are quietly accelerating the very problems they're trying to avoid. Joints that ache more every year. A waistline that keeps creeping up. Energy that vanishes after lunch. Mood that flattens without warning. Sleep that never feels like sleep. And the cruel part, most of these habits were perfectly fine at 45. Your body forgave them. But after 60, the body stops forgiving. It starts keeping score. I've sat across from patients who were doing everything right on paper, taking their walks, watching their portions, getting their annual checkups, and still declining slowly. And almost every time, when we looked closely at their daily habits, we found at least 2 or 3 things on this list. Not dramatic choices, not obvious mistakes, just small, ordinary behaviors that nobody had ever flagged as risks. That ends today. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 specific things that doctors are now urging adults over 60 to stop doing immediately. We're counting down from number 7 all the way to number 1. And number 1 in particular is the one that surprises patients the most. Because it's not about food, it's not about exercise, it's something most people have been doing their entire adult lives without ever questioning it. If you're over 60, or if someone you love is, stay with me through every single one of these. The habit doing the most damage to your health right now might be the very last one you'd suspect. My name is Dr. Olivia Brooke. I've spent over 20 years in internal medicine and geriatric care, and in that time, I've noticed one pattern that repeats itself constantly. The habits that harm older adults the most are almost never the obvious ones. This channel exists to close that gap, to give you the information that doesn't always make it into a short office visit. Practical, evidence-based guidance that helps you stay strong, independent, and in control of your own health for as long as possible. Before we get into today's countdown, I want to ask you something directly. Of the small things you do each day, how many are exactly the same as they were 20 years ago? The way you start your morning, what you reach for when you're tired, how you spend a quiet afternoon, how you settle in for the night. For most people, the honest answer is not much has changed. And that's precisely the problem. Because the body you're living in today is not the same body you had at 45. The habits have to change with it. Drop a comment below and tell me which one of your daily routines you wonder most about. I read every single one. Let's get into the countdown. Number 7. Stop skipping your daily walk. And this one is going to challenge something you probably believe about yourself. Most people over 60 don't think of themselves as inactive. You move through the house, you handle errands, you stay reasonably busy. But here is what recent research has made undeniably clear. The single most powerful predictor of independence after 65 is not strength, it's not balance, it's whether or not you walk most days. Walking for 25 to 35 minutes a day at a pace that makes conversations slightly effortful is associated in published research with measurable reductions in cardiovascular events, slower cognitive decline, better blood sugar regulation, and a stronger immune response. Studies following adults over 60 for more than a decade consistently show that daily walkers remain independent longer than non-walkers. 2 to 4 years of living fully on your own terms, cooking your own meals, climbing your own stairs, driving yourself where you want to go. The reason is straightforward. Walking is the one exercise that nearly every older adult can still do safely, and it touches almost every system in the body at once. It recruits the large muscles of the legs and hips. It strengthens the heart. It improves circulation in the lower limbs. It gently loads the bones, slowing the age-related loss of density that leads to fractures. And it lifts mood through natural changes in brain chemistry that no pill replicates as cleanly. The fix costs nothing. Lace up your shoes after breakfast or after dinner. Step outside, walk for 30 minutes at a pace where you can still talk but you wouldn't want to sing. If the weather keeps you in, march in place in your living room while listening to music you love. Consistency matters far more than intensity. The person who walks 30 minutes every day outperforms the person who does an hour once a week every single time. If you have joint pain that limits walking, speak with your doctor. There are modifications, water walking, shorter intervals, softer surfaces that get you most of the benefit without aggravating what hurts. Coming up next, something you're probably pouring into your mug several times a day that's working quietly against your bones and your blood pressure. Number 6. Stop drinking coffee and tea without ever thinking about your calcium. This one is going to land close to home because it touches habits most people have carried for 40 or 50 years without ever questioning them. You brew the pot in the morning, you refill the mug mid-morning, you reach for another cup after lunch. And for most of your adult life, that was fine. But after 60, that pattern can quietly pull something essential out of your body. Here's why. Caffeine increases the amount of calcium your kidneys excrete in urine. The effect per cup is small, but across 3 or 4 cups a day, across years, the cumulative loss adds up. And this matters specifically after 60 for 2 reasons. First, bone density begins declining faster after menopause and continues throughout later life. Second, the efficiency of calcium absorption from food decreases with age, so the body is losing more calcium at the exact moment it is absorbing less. Coffee and black tea also tend to crowd out other beverages, including the ones that quietly carry calcium and vitamin D, like fortified milk, fortified plant-based drinks, or even just plain water. Caffeine itself isn't the enemy. Most adults tolerate 2 small cups a day without consequences. The problem is quantity, timing, and what caffeine drinks quietly replace. For someone over 60, that calcium loss shows up as a thinning of the vertebrae, a higher fracture risk from a simple fall, slower healing after any injury, and even subtle interference with nerve signaling that affects balance. The fix isn't giving up coffee. It's about protecting what coffee quietly takes. Drink your coffee, but pair it with breakfast that contains calcium. A cup of milk, fortified yogurt, a slice of aged cheese. Aim for 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of total calcium across the day from food whenever possible. And if your doctor has ever mentioned osteopenia or osteoporosis, this conversation becomes essential, not optional. Add a short walk most days, because weight-bearing movement pulls calcium into the bone where it actually belongs. Next, something that happens after lunch most days and is quietly undoing everything your morning walk just built. Number 5. Stop napping longer than 30 minutes in the afternoon. Before we get into number 5, I want to check in. If you've been watching this long, thank you. That tells me you're genuinely serious about your health. Go ahead and type the number 2 in the comments right now. It lets us know you're here and it helps this video reach more people who need this information. Keep watching. The most important ones are still ahead. Number 5 hits at the most peaceful part of the day, the post-lunch quiet. And it's something most older adults don't realize is directly connected to the quality of sleep they get at night. Many people over 60 look forward to a long afternoon nap. It feels restorative. You come inside after lunch, settle into your favorite chair, and drift off. 2 hours pass. You wake up groggy, your head feels heavy, and somehow the rest of the afternoon feels slower than it should. That long nap didn't restore you. It pulled something essential from your night. Here's the mechanism. Sleep is governed by something called sleep pressure, the natural buildup of a substance called adenosine that makes you feel sleepy. The longer you stay awake, the more adenosine accumulates and the easier it is to fall asleep at night. Napping for 90 minutes or 2 hours in the afternoon clears a large amount of that adenosine. By the time bedtime arrives, there isn't enough sleep pressure left to carry you into deep, restorative sleep. You lie down tired, you drift in and out. You wake at 2 in the morning, you rise unrested. That nap also temporarily drops your core body temperature and shifts your circadian rhythm later in the day, both of which make nighttime sleep shallower and more fragmented. For someone managing blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, or prediabetes, fragmented sleep raises overnight readings, increases morning inflammation markers, and reduces the deep sleep stages that the brain uses to consolidate memory and clear metabolic waste. The correction is simple. Keep naps to 20 minutes, no more than 30. Set a quiet alarm. Napping early in the afternoon, before 2:30, keeps the benefit without sacrificing night sleep. Even a brief nap, eyes closed for 10 minutes, can lift alertness and mood for the rest of the afternoon. If you have nighttime sleep apnea, talk with your doctor before napping regularly. The combination needs careful coordination. Up next, something most seniors do at the dinner table every night that's quietly damaging the muscle they depend on for the rest of their lives. Number 4. Stop eating your largest meal at dinner. Number 4 hits something almost every household in the country does. Dinner as the biggest meal of the day. A plate filled with protein, starches, vegetables, bread, and dessert. Comforting, familiar, and for someone over 60, quietly working against the body's ability to recover overnight. After 60, muscle protein synthesis becomes less efficient. The body needs more protein at one time to send the same signal to rebuild muscle than it did at 40. It also becomes more insulin resistant in the evening. The same carbohydrate load that your body handled easily at lunch shows up as a higher blood sugar reading after dinner and again the next morning. There's also the matter of overnight recovery. The hours between dinner and breakfast are when the body clears waste from the brain, repairs muscle tissue, consolidates memory, and regulates immunity. A heavy meal shortly before that recovery window begins redirects metabolic energy toward digestion instead of repair. The result is poorer sleep quality, higher morning blood sugar, slower muscle recovery, and over months, a gradual loss of lean mass even when total calories look reasonable. Add to this the simple reality of digestion in older adults. Stomach emptying slows with age. A large meal eaten at 7 in the evening may still be sitting undigested at 11. That backed up digestive load increases reflux, contributes to that heavy chest feeling at night, and raises the risk of aspiration in adults with neurological conditions. The fix is structural. Make breakfast and lunch your two substantial meals. Move the protein, the vegetables, the complex carbohydrates earlier in the day. Make dinner the lightest meal. A piece of fish or legumes, a generous serving of non-starchy vegetables, a small portion of whole grains if you wish. Finish dinner at least 3 hours before you intend to sleep. Patients who make this shift report better nightly sleep within a week, more stable morning blood sugar within 2 weeks, and noticeably easier weight management without counting a single calorie. Next, something happening in your living room right now that's quietly affecting how clearly you think tomorrow. Number 3, stop watching the news before bed. Number 3 may be the most underestimated habit on this entire list, because you don't feel its damage in the moment. You feel it the next morning when you wonder why your thinking feels duller than it should. Here's the pattern I see constantly. Dinner around 6 or 7, the evening news, or a tense political panel, or a suspenseful documentary. The volume rises as the content intensifies. Lights off, straight to bed. Then lying awake for 45 minutes. Waking at 2 in the morning, rising unrested. The mind still spinning. This is not a sleep problem, it's a nervous system problem. Your body has 2 operating modes. The sympathetic state, which governs alertness, stress response, and emergency readiness. And the parasympathetic state, which governs rest, digestion, and recovery. For sleep to be restorative, you need time to shift into parasympathetic mode before you ever close your eyes. In older adults, that transition takes considerably longer than it did at 40, and it is far more easily disrupted. Emotionally charged content, especially late in the evening, keeps cortisol and adrenaline elevated. Studies of news consumption before sleep have repeatedly shown measurable delays in sleep onset, shallower stages of deep sleep, and elevated overnight heart rate in adults over 60. For anyone managing atrial fibrillation, anxiety, high blood pressure, or any cardiac condition, chronically elevated overnight heart rate is a recognized risk factor, not just an annoyance. The solution is a 45-minute wind down before bed. Dim every light in the house. Turn off the news. Step away from the documentary. Put the phone in another room. Read something gentle. Try slow breathing. 4 counts in, hold for 4, exhale for 6. That pattern has been shown to activate the parasympathetic system and lower resting heart rate within minutes. Choose your last hour of the day the way you would choose a meal. Calm, nourishing, easy on the system. Your tomorrow depends on it. If you've made it this far, most people haven't. And that says something real about you. Type the number 4 in the comments right now. Let's see who's still here. Now number 2 and number 1. These are the 2 that change everything. Number 2. Stop ignoring the small changes in how you walk. This one isn't about formal exercise or your doctor's recommendation. It's about something most people over 60 notice, briefly wonder about, and then quietly ignore because it doesn't hurt yet. I'm talking about the way you walk. The slightly slower pace on a familiar route. The handrail you started gripping this year that you didn't use last year. The hesitation at the top of the stairs. The way you avoid the dark hallway at night. The pair of shoes you quit wearing because they felt unsteady. These are not signs of getting older. They are signs that your balance system is sending an early distress signal. Here's why this matters. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related hospitalization in adults over 65. Most falls happen not during sports or strenuous activity. They happen during everyday movement. Getting out of bed, walking to the bathroom in the dark, stepping off a curb, reaching for something on a high shelf. The fall itself is often less dangerous than the weeks of recovery that follow, especially when surgery is involved. Loss of confidence after a fall can trigger a cascade: reduced movement, weaker muscles, greater fall risk the next time. Balance is not a single sense. It is the integration of inner ear function, vision, leg strength, joint position sense, and reaction time. As each of these declines a little with age, the system loses redundancy. A small problem in one area is no longer covered by the others. The result is the stumbles and near misses you used to recover from automatically. The habit that transforms this is brief, daily balance work. Stand on one foot while brushing your teeth. Walk heel to toe along a hallway, keeping a counter for support if needed. Practice stepping over an imaginary line on the floor. Sit to stand from a chair without using your hands. 2 minutes, 3 times a day. That small consistency rebuilds the automatic reflexes that keep you upright for the rest of your life. If you've had a recent fall, dizziness when standing, or any new unsteadiness, speak with your doctor before adding balance work. There may be a medication, an inner ear issue, or a blood pressure pattern contributing that needs to be addressed first. One more section to go, and this is the one I've been saving. Before we get to number 1, I want to pause. If you've watched this far, you're the kind of person who takes their health seriously, and that matters more than any single habit. Go ahead and type your age and where you live in the comments below. It tells me this information is reaching people who genuinely want to understand what's happening inside their own bodies. I see every comment. Thank you for being here. Now, number one, stop letting loneliness become your normal. I want you to hear this one carefully because it isn't about food, a supplement, or a bedtime routine. It's about a quiet condition that is, in my clinical experience, the single most underestimated threat to the health of adults over 60. I'm talking about loneliness, not the temporary kind that lifts after a phone call, the chronic kind, the kind where days pass without a meaningful conversation, where you eat alone without noticing, where the house has gotten quieter over the years and you tell yourself you're fine. These explanations feel reasonable. They feel responsible. I've heard them from patients who are clearly declining, but they are quietly costing people years of healthy life. Loneliness is associated in published research with a meaningful increase in the risk of early cognitive decline, a comparable rise in cardiovascular event rates, a measurable weakening of immune response, a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and a striking acceleration of memory loss. The magnitude of these effects has been compared in major reviews to other well-established chronic risk factors. This is not a metaphor. There is also a cultural pressure on older adults to be self-sufficient, not to make a fuss, to accept a shrinking social world as a natural part of aging. That pressure is understandable, and it is quietly lethal. Loneliness is not the same as isolation. You can be alone by choice and feel fulfilled, or you can be surrounded by people and feel deeply unseen. What matters is the felt sense of meaningful connection, at least several times a week. A conversation that goes beyond logistics, someone who notices when you sound off, a community where you are expected. For someone over 60, the baseline number of social connections tends to shrink for reasons that have nothing to do with personal failure. Friends move, spouses pass, adult children become busy with their own lives. Retirement disrupts the daily contact that work once provided. Hearing loss makes group conversation exhausting. Mobility issues limit who you can see. None of this is a personal failing. All of it is a setup for the condition we miss most often. The practice I recommend to every patient over 60 is intentional connection. One planned social contact a week that exists on a calendar, not as an accident. A standing coffee with a neighbor, a phone call with an old colleague, a class at a community center, a volunteer shift at a food bank, a weekly meal at a place of worship. Whatever fits your life, fits your mobility, fits your personality. The structure matters as much as the warmth. Scheduled connection is harder to cancel than optional connection. If hearing loss is keeping you from conversations, address it. Modern hearing support is smaller, clearer, and easier to use than it was a decade ago. Audiology is medicine, not vanity. 7 habits. 7 ordinary, invisible things that are quietly working against the health of millions of older adults every single day, most of whom have no idea any of this is happening. You now know that daily walking is the strongest predictor of how long you stay independent. That caffeine quietly pulls calcium your bones need. That long afternoon naps steal the sleep pressure your nights depend on. That dinner should be your lightest meal, not your largest. That charged content before bed keeps your heart rate elevated all night. that the small changes in how you walk deserve a response before they become a fall, and that loneliness is not a mood, it is a measurable physiological risk that deserves the same attention as blood pressure or cholesterol. None of this requires a dramatic overhaul. Start with one: a walk after breakfast tomorrow, a coffee paired with a glass of milk this morning, a 20-minute nap instead of a 2-hour one, a light dinner 3 hours before bed, a book instead of the news after dinner. 2 minutes of balance work while you brush your teeth. A phone call placed on the calendar this week. One small change held consistently changes more than you might expect. Your body at 60, 70, or 80 is still responding to the choices you make. Every good habit you build from this point forward isn't just slowing decline, it's actively improving the quality and independence of the life you're living right now. If this video helped you see something you hadn't noticed before, share it with a spouse, a sibling, or a close friend, because these habits affect more than one person. They affect every family connected to that person. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is a good time. Leave a comment telling me which habit you're starting with. I genuinely want to know. This community is built on those conversations. Thank you for being here today.